And and Jim, you've talked so beautifully about our students' experience and lessons for those students to take. But you've also had the experience of being a school leader and administrator, both in the independent school and the public school settings. What wisdom would you have for our teaching faculty, which our faculty this time are managing this new normal, far from what their experience has been in the classroom for their entire teaching career, and that difference in experience in teaching and mentoring our students as they navigate as well these uncertain times.
I so empathize that a community of caring teachers needs to persevere in the midst of this that is made most difficult by the fact that physical interaction with kids is part of what gives you your essence. Um, Being there, uh, just in many ways, very little has changed. I mean, teachers every year we plant the seeds to a crop that we never see harvested. Maybe I've been fortunate to get letters later, but that's it. That's the payoff to hear about a kid you had as a sixth grade teacher who's now got a family of her own and is doing well and has decided to teach. So it's important that your students perceive you as as being an emotional person who knows that we need to get a job done. We need to move forward. That's part of what makes us who we are. And I don't know that you can suspend some of the darker aspects of the present day, but I've had some wonderful teachers. Some teachers who have surprised me in times of difficulty. Some folks who respond to these problems by becoming almost a character of theater in their rooms. They breeze in and they breathe a sense of acceptance and caring, and nothing matters more than what is in front of us right here. Because we need to get through it. We need to get through it with one another, and we need to know that we can trust that our students know we're telling them the truth and we are bearing up as they are bearing up, but we need to help them shoulder things. In the meantime, interacting with one another can be difficult. I mean, you're confined. That doesn't bring out the best attributes of relationships to be involuntarily confined. In many ways, just to touch on the prison experience, uh, a lot of those guys were kept in solitary confinement, and some of them came back saying it's a good thing because at being in confinement did not bring out the best in me. I would simply note that you've got the rest of your lives in front of you too, and I know this is a tough phase, but you're doing great. And the kids perceive you as doing great. You are their shelter. You are their the one domain they can count on you. They can't count on the rest of the world. That's what they're learning. So I would simply ask that you put on your best self and be for them what you wanted to be for those kids the first year you taught, which was everything. Keep us whole. Help them feel faith in themselves and faith in the world with which they're trying to contend. Don't accentuate the difficulty, but do point out and feature the positive aspects of their behavior and their learning and their loving one another and their being in a school that cares about them. That may sound like platitudes, but it's really what we're reduced to in these times. But do take special care with one another in your interactions, and don't see this as a reason why you can let loose pet peeves or subtly undermine someone else in a meeting or all that crappy behavior that we know sometimes goes on. Be your best self. Don't indulge those tendencies during a time when everyone is struggling to get through, and everyone has a family at home, and everyone has kids that are difficult and parents that are sick. And realize that all we have is each other.
Thank you. And I can say that we have seen that demonstrated with our faculty. And that's been what's been so beautiful during this time. Is one of the conversations from the onset has been, as by nature, so many of us are perfectionists and maximizers, and just the mere fact that we are continuing, and now that we're seeing our students every day in person, which we recognize, changing conditions may mean that we withdraw to a hybrid or fully virtual again. But the fact that we're continuing this learning and growing during this time speaks to how good that truly is for our community, ourselves, and our students within that. And one additional just follow-up question, which is on my mind, I don't think it's not by coincidence that your father, following this experience in his life, this defining moment in many ways, in which he actually had many defining moments in his
Mm,
life, um, returned as an educator,
mm,
and his family, you, brothers, your daughter Liz, are also educators, and just not only in times like this, but if you could just speak again to our faculty
mhm,
as a reminder, because I find myself still the value of the reminder of the power of education, and the power of education, not only in times of crises, but throughout, and how important that is, really, to a family, and your father's legacy of the power and transformational nature of education.
mm. Every great leader I have ever known has been a very good teacher. And I've had a chance to be be around men of my father's caliber and others. Mike Mullen, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Bill Crow, my father's best friend and classmate at the Naval Academy, went on to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. These are leaders on an international scale, politicians I've met as well. And they all can tell the story. They can all explain why it is important that we conduct ourselves in ways that bring us and those around us honor. One of the things that Dad's homecoming brought with it was the opportunity to be around a lot of men who were leaders. Every great leader I have ever known has been a very good teacher, and these men and women, of course, the Navy skews male, but every man and woman that I've known who has led people effectively, helped implant in them the sense of duty and mission that they have felt they wanted to convey. This involves teaching. And the men who came home from that prison, we've heard about post traumatic stress. A lot of these guys were labeled as having the capacity for post traumatic growth. They came back ready to live to the fullest and do everything that they could and support one another. Um, I think that yes, Dad went into teaching, and here's a little story for you that I told the other day, and that the group of military officers laughed at heartily. When Dad was sent to the Naval War College to be the president, he got it in his head that he wanted to teach this course, and in these days of education where we process everything to death and ask everybody and try to get input from all the various channels and so forth and so on, Dad, in the first week of his presidency at the Naval War College, announced to the faculty that he was going to be teaching a course called The Problems of Good and Evil. and that he wanted them to know that he wasn't going to interrupt their courses, but that he intended to teach this course. And Mr. Peden, I need to tell you, they are still teaching that course 50 years later at the Naval War College, and it's a philosophy course, and people from all over. I mean, these people come to this. I know I say the Naval War College like people know what it is. It's a graduate school in Newport, Rhode Island, where individuals from our own military, intelligence services, and international naval personnel come together for a year course and get to know one another. It's an amazing place. A thing where so much of being a teacher comes from being who you are. And great leaders, if they're anything, they are authentic. Um, I mentioned Bill Crow, and a name that people don't recognize. But in the 90s, when Bill was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, 80s, 80s it was, during the Reagan administration, I beg your pardon, his counterpart from the Soviet Union came to the United States. Bill had been to the Soviet Union and studied, and at their invitation, had been on a tour of their military installations and talked with their leaders. When the Russian general in charge of all of their military came to the United States, he was going to go on tour about 12 different bases, various services across the country. And Bill Crow's standing order was, you answer every question he may have explicitly, honestly. Keep nothing back. Explain both your fears and your pride. Do both. And the Russian general came for about a week and a half and he toured American military bases. And he went back to the Soviet Union and said, we don't have a prayer. These people are united in their commitment to their ideals. And we know our soldiers are doing it because they're ordered to. Totally different. And that never made the papers, but it wasn't a coincidence that Bill Clinton called Bill Crow to work for him for 8 years quietly behind the scenes in international diplomacy because he had those skills. He knew and understood human nature. And by having the Americans speak openly and honestly to a feared leader of a foreign army was the best thing he could have done to help that general know he was outgunned, outmanned, and outflanked.